All right. I'm gonna play the intro and then we'll go. All right.
Good.
3, 2. Welcome in, everybody. Another very special edition of Messi and Co. here in English. I am your host, Austin Roblard, and joined with me, of course, the very lovely Gian and the very lovely Ashley. And today we have a lot to cover, especially because Miami are getting ready to play in the club's ever first semifinal. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. Gian, Ashley, are we still kind of taking in what happened in Charlotte? I mean, what we talked a ton after the show, Gian and I. So just really quickly, Ashley, I haven't talked to you yet just about it. Give me your quick rapid fire reaction about like what happened against Charlotte and the excitement for this team going into a semifinal of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great game. I think in the beginning, and there were certain parts where I feel like Inter Miami had got some really good competition and was seeing a very, diligent, well coached squad. But they didn't take advantage of their opportunities, Charlotte. And I feel like for a lot of the time with Inter Miami, we used to say that they didn't take advantage of their opportunities and they got punished. And I think now we're kind of on the other side of that coin where Charlotte FC did not take advantage of their opportunities and they got punished because, Joseph got his penalty. Messi, of course, got the last goal. Robert Taylor got a great goal. Everyone did their part. And so it's really exciting. I think the team is continuing to build. It's getting strong. A lot of consistency we're seeing. I think Jordi Alba made a great contribution to the game. Everyone is stepping up, and I'm super excited. It's going to be a really, really tough game on Tuesday, a really big test. And I mean, I think we're forgetting that it's only been 5 games that he's played. It feels like it's been months, but I'm really excited. Yeah.
8 goals in 5 games, all wins. Like it's just insane. And like thinking about those kinds of numbers for any player in MLS, or I guess this new Leagues Cup, whatever it is, just unprecedented. So what he's doing is absolutely insane. And right when we come back after this quick little ad break at the beginning of the show, we have some new arrivals to talk about. We'll be right back.
If you are ready to transform your backyard into a haven of relaxation and luxury, look no further than our amazing podcast sponsor, L'Acqua Azzurra Pool Services. With over 20 years of industry experience, L'Acqua Azzurra is a name you can trust when it comes to services, equipment repairs, and restoration for all things pools. If you're looking in the South Florida area for your pool to be serviced on a month-to-month basis, L'Acqua Azzurra boasts an impressive 5-star rating on Google reviews, and it's a testament to their dedication to the customer satisfaction and top-notch service. Also, if you mention Messi and Co, you will get your first month of pool service absolutely free. So don't wait. For pool service, patio renovation, or more, call them now at 954-793-7206 and get a free quote for any project. Thanks, L'Acqua Azzurra.
All right, so a couple of big names joining Inter Miami training this week. It's taken a little bit of time, since the announcement of their signings, but they are finally here. Diego Gomez got here a little bit faster than these guys. But Miami did hit the trigger on all 3 of their U22 signings. Facundo, Farias, and Tomas Aviles signed, the winger and the central defender, both Argentinian. Recruited by Tata Martino in the front office and brought into Miami to fill out their U22 spots. Gian, what does this do for Inter Miami? We talked so much about the depth that this team has, and we're going to get a lot more into that in just a little bit. But, the excitement for Farias and Aviles to join, I mean, where does that put Miami, given that what we just mentioned? They have the greatest player in the world. He has 8 goals in 5 games, and they have not lost yet. Wow.
Yeah, I think that it puts them in a really good spot. I think that they definitely address some positions of need right from the bat. I think one more so than the other. So, for example, we've had a team that's been gelling, and what a great time to start gelling, because think about it. Like, we were worried about, will we be able to make a playoff run? And we've got a Messi, Alba, Busquets, we've got a bunch of new players coming together, and just the fact that we've been able to stay in this tournament and still competing in this tournament just keeps putting a lot of games for us to be able to gel, right? And now we've got 2 more players coming in, so a lot of the team has gelled. You've got 2 players that are really good, really young guys coming from really competitive leagues, and I guess I'll start off with Tomas Aviles. One of the things that we know throughout this season has been how we've struggled on defense, and how right now, at least with our 2 center backs, we've got Krzysztof and we've got Kamal Miller right now, and I think that like Tomas Aviles has a big chance of being one, like getting in right away. I know that a lot of us might have different opinions as to kind of whose spot he takes, but given that we've received a lot of goals from like set pieces and that sort of thing, I think that Tomas Aviles is a defender that's strong, that knows how to defend those, particularly, at least the kind of like the highlights that I've been able to see with him in Racing. So I think Tomas Aviles is gonna get his spot right away. But I think I'll make a prediction. I think it's gonna be for Krzysztof over Kamal Miller. Just I know that Krzysztof kind of brings that veteran status to the team, but one of the things that kind of is something that Inter Miami does is we play our fullbacks like really high up, and that a lot of times leaves our 2 center backs and maybe sometimes Arroyo in the back. But when we get countered, a lot of times our center backs aren't fast enough, and more so the veteran Krzysztof has had a hard time keeping up with those counters. And Tomas Aviles is a defender that's very fast. He's very young. And I think that, Krzysztof is the older of the 2 between Kamal. He's 32 years old. Kamal Miller's 26. And that tends to, at that position, you start to lose your speed. So I think that definitely Tomas Aviles can slot in there right away. And then Facundo Farias, before this whole thing with Robert Taylor just emerging as an amazing player, he's one of the guys that I think he's the one that has the most assists for Inter Miami right now. And he's the one that's really been able to associate himself well with Messi. I think the easier option before was to have Facundo Farias slot in right there. But now, obviously, Tata Martino is going to have a much harder decision to go there. But Facundo Farias and Robert Taylor have a lot of like similar skills. They're very good at being able to take the defender off of the dribble. So I think that I think it's something good for Miami to have really good players and to have to figure out, where to slot them in for sure.
And that's kind of where it's obviously always going to be up to Tata Martino, but he showed with Diego Gomez coming in, he's not afraid to throw these young guys on and prove themselves in a start, because it was only like a 20-30 minute appearance at most for Diego Gomez in his debut off the bench, and straight after that he went ahead and controversially started in the next match against FC Dallas. And now with guys like Farias and Aviles joining, it puts the pressure on the backs of the guys, like especially Krzysztof and Miller, because we've seen how slow they've been in transitional defense. We've seen, kind of not necessarily miscommunication, but it seems like there tends to be some sort of disconnect at times, especially with the fluidity of what Tata Martino wants to do on the field, with Dixon sometimes dropping as in the 3rd center back spot, as we've noted. They're asked to do a ton defensively, given that we have, some of the most attacking wingbacks in the league with DeAndre Yedlin and now Jordi Alba. Noah Allen was liking to get forward as well. So, I hadn't really thought about Tomas Aviles starting quickly, rather than I think, Farias might probably get the start first. But now that you've just said that, Gian, about the center backs, you've made me think, like, I don't think Tata will be afraid to go ahead and shift and formulate a back line that is maybe a bit younger, because Kamal's in the prime of his career. Kamal's in the prime of his career, and he's done so well in the league for quite some time. He's done well for Canada as well. And with Aviles coming in to build a partnership, I think partnerships, especially in the center back position, are extremely important. I think it's one of the most important positions to have a partnership. So it is tough to say, yeah, we need to make adjustments here at this point in the season. But at the same time, you have seen the struggles. We have seen the struggles. We did see it against Dallas as well. So I think that is something really important to think about. And that brings me into what Miami are going to be doing going forward, because there are going to be a ton of positional battles. And we just talked about Aviles and the center backs, but there's more. Gian and I, if you've listened to the pod, we have talked so much about the midfield with Kremeshki and Gomez alongside Sergio Busquets and Dixon Arroyo. We have the striker discussion, Campana and Martinez, and we also have now with Farias coming in the discussion, with him and Robert Taylor, and what Tata Martino is going to do is obviously unknown to anybody right now, but I can't even go ahead and tell you what I think Miami's best lineup is with all the players on their roster. So Asha, I'll start with you. Where are you kind of leaning in terms of these key discussions? What's Miami's like ideal lineup if everybody's, fit and ready to go outside of Gregory and Mota, because that's a whole other discussion about what you do with the midfield players when they come back. Farias and Taylor, Campana and Martinez, Kremeshki and Gomez, Aviles to see get the start. Where do you see Miami as their strongest? What is Tata Martino's, what will be Tata Martino's go-to lineup with these four different positional battles?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that at the moment it's Kremashki's and Taylor's to lose.
Yeah.
I would be pretty surprised if either of them were not starting. I think Martinez is going to continue to start, even though, in my personal opinion, I think Campana should get the chance to start. I mean, I think the last game, though, was an indication of Tata saying, you're out at 60. Like, if you're, I'm not going to wait until the 70, 75th, 80th minute. I'm giving Campana a full 30 minutes. And truth to be told, while I think that Joseph is a better finisher than Campana, I think Campana does so much more in terms of, pushing the opponent's back line, doing good hold up play, being creative, and doing things that are going to get the offense to move a bit more in that final third. And I mean, when you have Messi and I would even say Robert Taylor at this point, you have two fantastic finishers that if Campana isn't your best finisher on the field, I think that's okay at the moment. I think, he's going to offer something a little bit more dynamic and different. But again, I don't think it is Martinez's to lose, but I think maybe in Tata's eyes it is. And so I don't think that's going to happen yet. And then finally, in terms of the center backs, I agree with you. I think that it could be interesting to think about going to a back three. But I don't know how that would shake up, but because again, I think maybe a 3-5-2 or even a 3-4-3, I think it would be difficult to see how that would play out at the moment. So but I think we need fresh legs to start immediately. And it could be one of those things where if, we continue our streak of getting good early leads or being able to control the game as it gets that 60th, 65th, 70th minute, we can move to a back three where you can have a Christoph be, a super sub, almost a defensive super sub, and see how that plays out. So, to go back, Kremashki, Gomez, while I think you saw with Gomez towards the end, when he has that freedom and is creative and he's more in that final third, it's really exciting. But I think Kremashki right now is doing great on both ends, and he's giving that complete package of what that position needs. And so I think it's really his to lose. And I mean, if you take out Robert Taylor, then I don't know how you can expect any player to ever think that they can keep their spot just based on, merit, performance, and goals.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. It was a long-winded answer, but that's kind of my feelings.
No, and you raised some really good points there, because there is, I think under Tata Martino, there is real potential for a back three. Is there not, Gian?
I think there is. I mean, I'm not someone that necessarily likes the back three position, but I think that he can definitely do it. He's got the personnel to do it now, that's for sure. But what happens if it's a back three? Then how does everything else change? Is that what I'm trying to figure out?
How much that's where I'm thinking, because does it change that much? Because we've seen the way that Dixon has shifted, right, when they go into a back three, and then it kind of leaves Busquets alone in a hole. Instead, you start off with a back three, play three center backs, and then the four in the midfield are your two wing backs and a double pivot of Arroyo and Busquets. And up front, you have Taylor, Martinez, or Campana, and Messi in a free roaming role. That is in my opinion, that's an ideal 3-4-3 that they could go ahead and run. It just depends on, really the only thing that I actually be concerned about is the defensive aspect of it with the three center backs, because I don't know how Aviles will mesh with Krivstov and Miller. And I don't know that if those spaces in behind the wing backs are going to be exploited to the point where we see more transitional defense coming at a fail for Inter Miami. So that's kind of where my head is at with it. You can't stick Aviles in the middle of the back three. I think a lot of discussion with past Inter Miami teams when they did run a back three was who was that mainstay in the middle of the back line. We'd seen Mabika there. We had seen even McVay have to do that after moving from left back. We've seen guys that have come in and commanded that role, and that's kind of leadership position. So can you go ahead and put Krivstov in the middle of a back three and use Kamal Miller and Aviles on either side of him, along with the wingbacks to, help out in transitional defense, and you don't leave Krivstov exploited as much? That's a real discussion to be had.
Yeah, and I want to throw in something that we haven't really talked about, but this would be interesting if we had Tomas Aviles not be in the defense, but actually take Arroyo's spot, because he is actually a defensive midfielder as well. And that would be sick, in my opinion, to have have him play in that position.
I'm a little disappointed that you said that, because we are Ecuadorian as well, Gian. You cannot forget that we have to have a little Ecuadorian bias.
I know that hurt. So I think that my compromise is then Campana comes in.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll take that.
Well, I think that if there's like not a weak link, but if they were to do a back three, if Tata was to do a back three, I actually think Arroyo would be the one to be sacrificed, because I think Kromowski right now or Gomez, either of them offers more of that transitional play. I don't think Arroyo is the best passer, in my opinion. I think he definitely does more defensively, but if we have a back three, then, I think that as long as we have someone really running and going back and forth, that means, Kromowski or Gomez, they can probably only do about 60 minutes, 65 minutes if they're really putting in a shift. But I think it could be interesting. I think a 3-5-2 could be interesting. A 3-4-3 could be very interesting. And we'll see. Or, when you're playing maybe a very high, like if they were playing, LAFC obviously just got knocked out. But like if you're playing a really high powered offense, I could see a situation where they're starting with a back three.
Yeah, Arroyo's a pit bull. That's more of his positioning. So I agree with what you said, Ashley. Actually, it'd be cool if Gomez took Arroyo's spot, and that way you still have Benja up top creating, in kind of as a 10. So I could definitely see that.
I think Gomez is primed for a little bit of time to develop that defensive side, because I think that he's so eager to get forward that it's not necessarily a position of need for Miami right now, because Lionel Messi can drop in at any time and do what he needs to do, and we're still trying to figure out what the best partner is for Sergio Busquets. And is it Dixon Arroyo? Is it Gregory when he comes back? Is it Malta when he comes back? I don't know, but I think that another discussion, and I'm going to write this down, that we can have is, you guys have said that Dixon Arroyo, is not necessarily could be sacrificed in a tactical change. However, with, the money that Miami are spending on guys like Gregory and Mota, and compared to the money they're spending on Dixon Arroyo, does Mota or Gregory become expendable so they can, fit some other players under the budget charge in other positions of need? Because I don't think that Arroyo has necessarily been bad for Inter Miami. I was very upset with what happened in the FC Dallas game. You guys heard me on post game. Gian, you saw me express my frustrations, but at the same time, now I think going forward with Miami returning to a full roster by the end of the season, you have to start having discussions about who is the best value for their salary, because that is essentially what MLS comes down to. Now, I know there will be some rule changes and likely added salary budget, but at the same time, Chris Henderson has been the key and prime example of getting the most value out of your players that are on the lower contracts. And he did that with Seattle. He built one of the best back lines in all of MLS, when they were going through their quote unquote dynasty phase, if that's what you want to call it. And they were one of the cheapest back lines in the league. And I think at one point they were the cheapest when they made a Western Conference final. So that for me is a discussion to be had later down the line. Do you sell Gregory? Do you sell Mota? Do you keep Arroyo? That is a discussion to be had later. I've had this discussion with myself and other colleagues about Nick Marsman for 2 years because of Drake Callender. I don't think that Marsman, I think they freed up $575,000 under the budget charge for Nick Marsman by buying him out. And he had not seen the field at all for Miami. He didn't need to see the field at all for Miami. They have young keepers who have come up through the ranks, and CJ Dos Santos, who they brought from Portugal, and then Cole Jensen, who was actually added to the League's Cup roster. Nick Marsman was in a perfect example of what might go on in the midfield down the line, but that's just me speculating. I had just thought of that because of what you guys are saying about Arroyo. And I also have Ecuadorian bias. So, there's a lot of discussion to be had there, but we'll save that for another time. We're going to get to the real important part of the show right now. And it's that Messi and Inter Miami are a part of their first ever semifinal. This has not happened in Inter Miami's history. This has been something that has, Miami fans and people who have covered the team who have asked for a really long time. U.S. Open Cup, I always thought should be a focus, and it never really was for Miami. They had lost it, leading up to quarterfinals a lot. The penalties against Orlando last year was heartbreaking, and they just were never able to get the job done. And now, with this brand new competition and Messi joining at the perfect time, they've reached the semifinal. Gian, I'm going to start with Ashley because I want your outside the lines perspective. Is the implications of Miami reaching a tournament stage that is a semifinal. What are those? What does that mean for the whole dynamic? Miami's dynamic is changing completely. Other than Messi being here, it becomes more of a global market, of course. But now the on the field stuff is really starting to click, and we're finally starting to see the rewards of that.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to read a tweet from Jorge Mas. I know you guys we've mentioned it from the Messi and Co. Social media, but the Messi effect is real. Subscribers to MLS Season Pass on Apple TV have more than doubled since Messi joined, which isn't surprising. And Spanish language viewership has surpassed over 50% for the Messi matches and continues to rise. So why am I saying that? Because we are seeing that with group level games, and the FC Dallas game was phenomenal, but we're seeing this with this tournament that is in its first year and with a team that we really didn't know the expectations going in. And even with Messi, even after that first win against Cruz Azul, we weren't sure what version of Inter Miami we were going to get and what they're going to grow into. And so this team becoming first of all, they're playing really beautiful football, in my opinion. You're seeing great one-touch passing. You're seeing great finishing. It's really great to see. You're not just seeing 90 minutes of boring and then Messi bailing everybody out. I mean, he's done those 2 great free kicks, but they were good games for the most part leading up to it. And so what it's doing for the city and just the overall quality of MLS, I think, is it's really spectacular. And the numbers are not lying. You're seeing the ticket prices soar. You're seeing the overall interest soar. You're seeing on Sports Center, on all of these different platforms where, especially for American fans, where you're normally just seeing, the big 3, which is basketball, American football, and baseball, you're seeing a lot more soccer clips being shown. And I think that's getting people's interest way up. And you start to see trophy, you start to see people playing for something real. You start to hear Champions League, you start to hear all these different words, and it starts to get people interested because they, you want to see people playing for something valuable and something to, that are hang banners forever. That's a very popular sort of saying. And so I think it's proving true here too.
Yeah, I think that, there would be if Miami weren't competitive, let's say Messi came here and stunk it up, right? Granted, it was never going to happen. It wasn't even on the cards. He didn't
stink it up, but the rest of the team really stunk it up.
Yeah, if that were to happen and Miami, got knocked out of Leagues Cup early, and let's just say, they didn't make it this far, and Messi wasn't scoring 8 goals in 5 games, I do think that the interest level would still be there. But the importance of the competitiveness on the pitch is still very, very, very high, because without there being, other than Messi brings a show by himself, but the whole team is putting on a performance, as you said, actually, a little bit earlier. You said that Miami is playing the best football you've seen them play. And that's where I think the kicker is. This is where it's separating, any other top level talent coming into MLS, because Messi has come in and changed the entire dynamic of Inter Miami as a franchise on and off the field. And, when a team's usually playing well on the field, it translates to off the field as well. And again, as Messi would normally have a good off the field impact anyway, it definitely doesn't hurt that they're competitive and into a semifinal. Gian, from just a soccer perspective, specifically for a lot of the young guys that are on Inter Miami, to be able to be this competitive and, steamboat over teams, just what does that do for their development in the future? How does that help build Miami from an on the field perspective going forward with guys like Kermeshki and Allen and all of these kinds of things to build out depth, of course, because that's what Miami have done so well at after, bringing in Lionel Messi. It hasn't just been about Lionel Messi. It's been about the Jordi Alba signing and the Busquets signing and now the U22s and how to facilitate, the DPs and the buy downs and everything. They've done such a good job at that, but you also have to develop these younger guys as well. How much does Messi and the level of competitiveness that Miami have now help develop them into players that you want them to be in the future?
I think it helps tremendously. These players like Kremaski, 18 years old, Gomez, and all the other young guys that have had to kind of get a head start over, maybe opportunities that they wouldn't have had just because of all the injuries. It's just a great moment for them because they've been able to experience so much in this in this competition that is Leagues Cup. They've been injected into maybe scenarios that they wouldn't have seen so quickly. And the overall team, I mean, it's amazing from just think about it. Like if we wouldn't have gotten so far in the Leagues Cup, and let's say we would have gone out in the group stage, and I think I was mentioning this before, then we jump into the league. We jump into the last couple of games of the Open Cup, basically a new team, a team that hasn't had the opportunity to play together, that hasn't had the opportunity to experience different scenarios, to overcome adversity. If you really think about it, like it's insane. In this short span of time, the different things that we've been able to experience as a team are incredible. Like that first game that we had in the Leagues Cup, we've experienced the Mexican club, the Mexican side of soccer. We've experienced the Mexican team. That's always something that's from an MLS standpoint is like you always want to be as big as the Mexican league because they've basically been known as a more experienced league and a more talented league. So we got that in game one, and boom, we passed that. The next one was right off of the bat. We go against Orlando. We get that derby rivalry game full of emotions, grit. Like you get that right in game two, right? So that was just insane. Then game three. What game three?
Orlando game three. Atlanta.
Sorry. Game three. My apologies. Then after that, we get the Dallas game, which was, man, like you could have easily, after going down by all those goals, you could easily have given up, but that team showed resilience. You got Messi coming in with the confidence and bringing the team up and scoring, saying, let's go, we got this. Like, and then we get this game, which is like the complete opposite of what we've seen the first four games, which was like almost like, okay, this team, yeah, we're much better than them, but make sure you stay in the game, concentrate, don't just, because sometimes you play down to the level of your competition. And I don't want to speak so bad about Charlotte, but Charlotte was not the best team, at least in the teams we've played so far. So we've gone all types of teams, like a very diverse set of experiences. And that's just a really amazing way to kind of like continue going. All these young guys, like you said, are experiencing that along the way and experiencing that with the likes of Alba, Busquets, and Messi, learning all the way. So once we're done with this cup, which I hopefully is with some silverware in hand, ready to put in the stadium, man, like the sky's the limit for us. We've got, again, just 12 games left in the season. We've got the US Open Cup. And then after that, imagine we win the Leagues Cup, we win the US Open Cup, and then we pull off a miracle. But I don't want to jinx that. But then you've got the CONCACAF champions. Like, man, you're setting yourself up to come out like with insane confidence and like ready to play, and an experienced team like that. Like a lot of teams take years to build that experience and that camaraderie and everything, and we're building it in like what, a month or something. Like that's just
Right.
insane.
Yeah, I mean, even if not silverware after Leagues Cup,
Yeah.
at least they've put themselves in a position, and especially with US Open Cup too, to get into what you just said, Gian, the CONCACAF Champions Cup, because that the intercontinental competition, to be put on a stage in North America of that magnitude, the highest of them all, then to potentially proceed to the Club World Cup and all of that, like Seattle did just a couple months ago. That is where it really starts to become important. And, from Miami's inception, it's been asked, can they win the Open Cup to get into the CONCACAF Champions Cup? Can they finish as Supporters Shield or finish, top 3 in their conference, and whatever Jorge Mas was saying a while ago? Like, they have not really ever been close to ever qualifying for this kind of a competition. It's never been close. The parameters are win MLS, be the Supporters Shield champion, or be the top team in the opposite conference of the Supporters Shield champion, or win US Open Cup. That's been it. Miami have had 7th place finishes, 9th place finishes, 10th place finishes, whatever it is, and have not been able to get even close. They haven't got out of the first round of MLS playoffs ever. They lost 3-0 embarrassingly to Nashville in their first season, and last year they lost embarrassingly in New York. So with what Miami is doing now, it's not the same. It's not the same team that I've watched over the last 4 years. It just isn't.
It's so exciting.
It's a team.
This is in our 4th year. This is crazy.
4th year, right? And you think of other expansion sides who have done somewhat well. Atlanta, of course, winning right off the bat pretty much, and under Tata Martino as well. And they haven't necessarily been able to stable the ship. A team like let me think. Since Cincinnati has taken their time to grow into one of the top teams, and good for them. They are now the best team in the East, and I think that they're probably other than Philadelphia, who we're going to talk about in a second, the most worthy opponent for Inter Miami within the conference. I think of a team like Minnesota United with Emmanuel Reynoso, who came into the league not so long ago and have had to get a build up to the Western Conference Final, which they did, and so there's a lot to be said for roster, not necessarily roster building, but expansion building. Like the way MLS teams have done it, and Miami are now setting a precedent that no other club will likely ever be able to repeat, because nobody ever is getting Lionel Messi again. But it kind of changes the entire ground, or the entire foundation of what MLS is going to become in the near future, because rule changes are looming. We've seen so many different reports of that as well. And that is another huge talking point, which we're going to definitely save for another pod, because there's so much to dive into when it comes to how Miami have pulled off what they pulled off. And if the rules do change, what else can Miami actually pull off with owners that are willing to spend? And that's another point. Miami have owners that are willing to spend. Does it make the other owners put their money where their mouth is and try and stay competitive in a league that has now more motivated owners to go ahead and do that? It's a crazy change that we've witnessed, and I think that we aren't gonna see a change like this. This was almost overnight. We have seen Miami in the offseason, go on with 14 roster changes or something crazy. Some of the most, I think they've had the most in MLS history at one point, where they had the most roster turnover. I think it was a year or two ago under Phil Neville. And this feels even more significant because it's the level of play is, granted, we expected it, right? We absolutely did.
But I don't know if I expected it to be at this level with everyone being so consistent this quickly.
Right. And that's exactly, actually, that's a really good point, because, it's taken time for a lot of stars to get acclimated in MLS. Like, it has to, other than Zlatan, who came on in that El Trafico game, however many years ago it was. When DPs come, it doesn't necessarily click right away, and Messi has just. I think it was Brian Schmetzer of Seattle who said in a press conference or like a media scrum earlier this week that somebody asked him about Messi, and it was is this what you expected, and what do you think about the quality and this and that? He goes, this is more than I expected. Like, he says that he understood that he's the greatest of all time and he's the GOAT, but this is even more than he expected. And I think that is so crazy to think about because it's like, how excited were we building this podcast? That's where I think back to, and like where we were like, oh my gosh, Messi's coming, it's going to be insane and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, it's blowing away expectations, and I don't think that it'll ever be repeated. But Miami have a roster build that is going to go down as the pretty much it's going to be the golden child for roster building going forward for expansion teams and even other teams alike that have been in the league for some time. This is going to be the role model. Chris Henderson has built Inter Miami as a role model for expansion, or not for expansion, for just roster building in MLS. And I think that with the DPs and U22s and everything that they've done, it's been perfect. So in a second here, we have a guest joining us, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But the Philadelphia game is where we're going to be headed. And I think that this is going to be one of the toughest tests for Miami. We said that about FC Dallas, but the last time that Miami took on Philadelphia, it was a 4-1 loss. And it wasn't a pretty game. You can look at the lineup. It was very different than the lineup that we have now. However, given what we saw in that game, Miami are definitely going to need to improve. But again, this is a brand new team. But Philadelphia is again, as I said earlier, along with Cincinnati, definitely the most worthy opponents. Doing that in a setting away from home in Subaru Park, where they have struggled in the past, and a lot of teams do. Ashley, give me your quick thoughts on this matchup before we bring on our special guest.
Yeah, I'll give mine because I'm gonna let you guys take the interview. I think it's, like I said, it's gonna be the biggest test by far. They kind of remind me a little bit of, and I don't know if this is a good comparison. It kind of just is off the top of my head, almost like a Bayern Munich or something like that, where it's a team that feels very not robotic, but it's not something is particularly flashy, but it's like a well-oiled machine. And you have a very intense crowd, you have intense players, you have a very strict kind of game plan, and they play to the very last second. And so, we'll see how the emotions play out. Obviously, their head coach already kind of gave the little, like, don't sell your tickets no matter how much they are, the mind games, which, by the way, I think is a crazy take. You should, if you're MLS, like, you should take the money. And that's the whole point of bringing Messi into the league, is so everyone can benefit from it. But regardless, so I think it'll be a really big test emotionally, mentally, and then just in terms of overall performance.
All right. We're going to do a quick ad break here with Mosaics. And Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. And we'll be back with our very special guest from Philadelphia.
Are you ready to transform your space into a masterpiece? Introducing Mosaics, your destination for stones and more. Mosaics is a family-owned business serving the community for over 20 years. With the best quality porcelain, ceramic tiles, and high-end mosaics featuring unique modern designs, Mosaics has everything you need. Dedicated customer service, wholesale distributors, and a passion for excellence. Make sure you visit mosaics.com today to turn your vision into a reality.
All right, we are back with a fresh face, David Malanda Jr., a good friend of mine now that I've met over the last couple of weeks and talked so much, football into Miami and Philadelphia, union with MLS as well, all the way from Philadelphia. Thank you so much for doing this. You are a huge reporter in the area. You've covered Philadelphia sports for quite some time. David, thank you so much for doing this and taking the time. And I want to get just some outside perspective right away on what it's like for an opposing team to face Inter Miami and Lionel Messi. What are the thoughts going through everybody's head? What are the feelings and all the like?
Well, let's put it this way. This is one of the biggest sporting events to hit city of Philadelphia, especially for what's so unique about this matchup is that everybody thought this game originally was going to be played at Lincoln Financial Field, the home of the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's not. It's going to be held at Subaru Park in Chester, where the Philadelphia Union play at. So everybody's saying, okay, so it means how much can that stadium really hold? Full capacity, 19,000 that stadium can hold. And right now, ticket prices are off the charts right now. This is like one of the highest events to hit that area in years. This is even bigger when LeBron comes to town, even bigger when Kobe and Michael Jordan came to town. This is like Taylor Swift level the excitement up here in Philadelphia right now.
Ashley would have loved that.
Yeah, I heard it was like 350 for standing room only. Like that is nuts.
That is partially true, but then as a couple hours ago on StubHub, for 2 standing room seats, $8,000.
Oh my goodness! Holy cow!
Yeah, you heard that right.
Wow.
You heard that right.
That's crazy. And we saw it with Dallas, right? And I think their tickets sold out in about 15 minutes. Philadelphia's might have sold out even faster than that.
2 minutes.
So 120 seconds to fill up the 19,000 whatever plus seats with standing room, whatever it is. That man, it's that in and of itself kind of explains what it's like for a city to be hosting this. But from a team perspective, David, after covering the Union and everything like that, this is obviously different than any other matchup that Philadelphia and Miami have had in their short history together. The only time that I can really think of, this is not comparable, but the only time where you saw like the star power like this, and what we're about to expect on tomorrow night was when the Higuain brothers, I think 2 years ago, scored 2 goals to win 2-1 at Subaru Park off of free kicks. Higuain scored one, and then Fede, I think, helped assist another one or something off of free kick. Whatever it was a couple of years ago.
I could probably compare to that, like when the LA Galaxy came, I think it was like 2016 or 17, when the soccer gods Zlatan Ibrahimovic played at Subaru Park. Downpouring rain, sold it out. He did score. So it was like, okay, we got what we wanted.
And Messi is on a better scoring streak than Zlatan was in his first 5 games. He's got 8 goals now in 5 games. What do you do if you're Jim Curtin, David? I mean, where do you start? Where are your initial thoughts about how Philadelphia can actually pull something insane off that no team has been able to do?
Well, there's many things. First off, Jim Curtin spoke today. He basically said it's still a surreal moment that that the greatest player of all time is going to be playing in the Philadelphia area for the very first time ever. So that's why there's more of a buzz for this game tomorrow. And he's like, you make one mistake, you're done. There's no way to explain it. You're done. So the way the Union looked against Querétaro on Friday night, that wasn't them at all. They looked way sloppy throughout the night. They were very lucky to get that goal by Chris Donovan, which a lot of people are still saying he was offsides, but he was not. Honestly,
I don't think he was
not. VAR backed it up. He was onside. So I don't want to hear this crap from anybody say, oh, that's what happens when you pay off the ref. No, not even close.
We hear that a lot over here at Miami,
trust me,
we sympathize with you.
Yeah, and then here's another thing as well. A lot of people thought that Philadelphia would never – what's the word I'm looking for? Adapt to having a soccer team in town. Well, guess what? Since the Union came in the league in 2010, their fan base has tripled every couple years. And it's Subaru Park has now become the premier place to watch a game now. And over their last 50 matches, the Union have lost 3 times. So, yeah, it's become one of the more intimidating sights to see when you come into Subaru Park and dealing with the Sons of Ben. Let me put it this way. There was a fair warning sent out by the Sons of Ben. If you want to sit in their section, you have tickets in their section, you got to follow their rules, which includes no Messi gear. You wear that, you cannot be in that section. And
we've seen that before.
Dead serious.
Yeah, we've seen that before. What was it was leading up to, it might have been the DC game where they put out it was after Messi had announced that he was going to play for Miami. And there were about 3 or 4 games in between when he would debut and when he announced it. And they were away to DC, and DC put out a memo for that section for where I don't, the supporter group name is escaping me, but they put out a memo saying any Messi gear or a Messi related gear or Miami related gear is not allowed into the stands. And it's just, obviously Messi is, driving the product up, and he is part of what the show is going to be. But you saw Jim Curtin and Ashley mentioned it earlier this week too, talk about don't sell your tickets. Like,
he's
we need
right.
the fans there.
Jim is actually 100% right about this. regardless how much you're being offered it's let's put it this way. There's going to be a lot of, how can I paraphrase in a simple way without offending a lot of people, is a lot of fake/fraud fans that basically want to just say, oh, we don't care about Philadelphia. We only care about this guy. We don't care what happens.
They want to see Messi play, which I think is valid. But at the same time, MLS and MLS teams have to be able to balance having those kinds of people who want to come into games to watch the greatest of all time play and keep a fan base intact to give you as much advantage as possible, because you're now being put to a competitive test that you've never seen before. So you're going to take everything that you can get.
I totally agree.
Curtin.
Especially like that, especially because here's the thing. A lot of people were saying, why wasn't this game moved to Lincoln Financial Field, which holds over 70,000? Well, here's a couple of things. One, it's on short notice. Two, the Philadelphia Eagles are getting the field ready for their preseason game this Thursday. So no way. But if this was like, say, if they had this tournament in, say, March, that would have been no issues.
Right.
There have been no problems with that. So potentially in 2024, you could see Philadelphia versus Inter Miami be played at Lincoln Financial Field, because by that point, who knows?
I think it's possible that a lot of teams think about those things, because we saw what happened in Frisco and just how crazy it was for FC Dallas and the amount of people that were there. And even before the game, after the game, the amount of people that were waiting. We've had discussions down here in South Florida about possible games being moved to, the Hard Rock Stadium where the Dolphins play. And those conversations have come up because of just the simple interest that, Miami have now among all the fans. As per Jorge Mas, it wouldn't happen for any of the Leagues Cup games, or it would not happen for any MLS regular season games. But if the U.S. Open Cup final is to be hosted in South Florida, meaning that Miami beat Cincinnati on the 23rd and the Dynamo beat Real Salt Lake at home, I think that game is also on the 23rd, then Miami have the priority to host, and that game could be at Hard Rock Stadium. So they could sit in front of 68,000 people like they possibly would for a Leagues Cup game against another side away from home. So those discussions among all teams in the league are going to have to be had. And I think that teams have to also see it as a possible business opportunity as well, because this is something that it's, you don't even have to try. The interest is just there among not only people in your state, but people in the surrounding areas that want to come, because it's the most accessible they'll ever have to seeing the greatest of all time play. He does not done a ton of U.S. stuff. He has before, but this is on a regular basis now.
Agreed. I totally agree with that, especially since he's under contract with Inter Miami for one more season. So yeah, if this game, like if say tomorrow night was two more, so
two, yeah.
So basically it goes like this. If this League's Cup was being held, say, back in March, the link would have been sold out within seconds. Right. But no, because of being on short notice, it's going to be at Subaru Park, and everybody's saying, really? There? That's a blown opportunity. No, it isn't. You want home field advantage? This is what you got to do. And also, so many media members have been applying for credentials for this game. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to feel the effects now of what you went through when you tried to get Messi's first game with Inter Miami in this League's Cup. So I still haven't heard back if I'm going to be credentialed for this game tomorrow night. So basically, I'm still waiting in limbo, even though I've been covering the Philadelphia Union since 2015. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out maybe tomorrow what happens.
Well, good luck to you, Gian.
David. Yeah. So I kind of want to transition a little bit into the actual game itself. And one of the things that Tata mentioned during today's press conference, he was asked kind of like, what is the starting lineup going to be for Inter Miami versus you guys, right? And he basically said it's going to be about the same, but he's kind of waiting to see what ends up happening with Gazdag, if he's going to start, to see how he kind of game plans and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, like, what word do you have from there? Is he going to start? Are there going to be any lineup changes? What can you expect to see from that standpoint?
Well, Jim Curtin came out today. He said Daniel Gazdag trained 100% today. He's a go for tomorrow. And the Union get their other special weapon back. The captain, Ali Bedoya, will be back as well. So he'll be both are good to go. The other concern was Julian Carranza, who got hurt in the game Friday night. He actually suffered, what was it? They said today it was where the hell was it at? Grade 1 hamstring strain, but he may not even start. He wants to play in this game because he's a fellow countryman as well. So he's going to have an impact in this game no matter what at some point tomorrow. But then you also have to consider like Daniel Gaza's badass this year. He's really good. And then you got the goalie of the year, Andre Blake, who is literally a brick wall. You can't mess with him. Then, like I said, the guys off the bench, like Chris Donovan, who scored that dramatic ending Friday night against Quintero, was awesome. Jack McGlynn had a great game as well. The Union have a lot of homegrown players that are just ready to take off. Since a lot of people don't realize the Philadelphia Union's homegrowns are doing very well over in Europe right now with Brendan Aronson and Mark
Paxton
McKenzie.
Aronson.
Yeah, and Paxton too.
Yeah, I think that's probably who I'm most worried about now is obviously Gazdag coming in. He's I know that you mentioned that their game against Querétaro, they were kind of like not their same, and that's obviously because Gazdag is their main guy that is able to make all the playmaking. But not only that, he's got the most goals, right? He's got 16, I think.
And half of them are by penalty kicks.
Yeah. So you got him. You've got Julian Carranza that has 14 goals for you guys across all matches. So just those two guys, if they're able to play, that's going to make a big difference for I guess Inter Miami and how they game plan.
Said the other night he's excited for this showdown with Messi. Yeah. He's ready for it. So.
I can also imagine Damian Lowe is too. That another ex-Miami player who, automatically takes leadership roles wherever he goes, and always has. That's just the kind of player he is. I loved him when he was down here. Getting to speak with him in the media was awesome. The way he's so well spoken, you can tell that he's got a leadership mentality. And I think that this is going to be one that he has like absolutely circled on his calendar. And I'm excited to see what he does.
Well, like I was saying, the buzz around this game after Friday night ended, it's on the level of Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That's how big this is. And just like the demand over the last 48 hours, my phone has not stopped blowing up. People asking me, can I get them last minute tickets? Are you out of your mind? Hell no. Are you out of your mind? No way.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've gotten the same over here, and everybody, it's a spectacle. Like it absolutely is. And I do hope you get to go and enjoy it, because I'm still amazed every time whether I watch it on TV and I'm sitting on my couch or I'm at the game. It's been the craziest turnaround in 1 month time that I've seen in the history of sports. I don't think that there is anything comparable to what we're witnessing. This team was on a 7-game winless streak before Messi came. Now they've won the 5 in a row. I'm not calling the Dallas one a draw, because winning on penalties is winning. And
same way with the Union, with our 2 straight wins on penalties against the Red Bulls and DC United.
So that's, for me, that's an interesting note, is that Philadelphia have also been in the trenches in this tournament. They've been exposed to the CONCACAF Champions Cup as of a couple of months ago. They've been one of the most consistent teams in MLS, so they've been a part of these competitions.
We're still haunted by the loss in the MLS final, the LAFC. We're still haunted by that.
Right. And that was, so a lot of penalties have been in Philadelphia's future. Are you confident that if they can take Miami the same way Dallas did, that, at home, they could sneak out a win in penalties? Because obviously it's, penalties are 50-50, but Philadelphia have been there, done that.
Right. Especially doing it against your 2 biggest rivals in DC United and the Red Bulls. So here's a funny thing that a lot of people didn't realize. Going into that DC United Leagues Cup game, the Union lost 6 out of their last 8 games on penalty kicks going into that. So now they won 2 straight. Here's what I think what's going to happen tomorrow. Messi's going to score, obviously. Gaza will definitely score. It's going to come down to penalties. I even asked Andre Blake about this, saying, what would it mean to you to make a stop on Messi? He's like, he scored against me twice. I stopped him once, but I can't wait to stop him again.
I think it's important, at least from a Miami standpoint, is to make sure you guys don't get any corner kicks, because we're one of the teams that is basically the worst at the set piece, and you guys have some really tall defenders. I mean, you've got Jack Elliott, I think he's at 6'6", and Glesnes at 6'2". Our tallest guy, tallest center back is 6'2", and then you've got Kamal Miller, 6'1", excuse me, and then Kamal Miller at 6 feet. So you guys are like beasts in the area, and you like to stack the area on those corners. I know you guys usually have about 6 players in there, so I think that's one of the keys for Miami.
And also, Inter Miami has to be worried because we played Inter Miami earlier in the season, and we embarrassed them up here at Subaru Park, which a lot of people thought Messi was going to play in that game. But here's another thing: there was a picture that went viral during that game. Was a Inter Miami, a fan from Inter Miami or from Argentina, wherever it was, said, "I traveled 18,000 miles to see the GOAT. He didn't play." That was priceless. That was priceless.
And another thing that I think Miami have to worry about too, Glesnes is somebody who's literally a yearly candidate for goal of the year because of his outside the box shots.
Anything for 50 yards out, good luck.
Miami haven't had to really worry about that kind of a threat so far, other than maybe Thiago Almada in the free kick areas. But they're going to have to, with Arroyo and Busquets in the midfield, I think, Gian, and this is a discussion that we can have going forward and into tomorrow, is that they need to shut down Philadelphia at the top of the box. It's not, build a block and just eliminate entry passes, because Philadelphia are very, very, very dangerous with Glesnes, especially from those areas. If he comes up and a ball comes, he can rip one.
And we have a secret weapon with that too. Jose Martinez also can hit it from 40 yards out now as well. He had the goal of the year against, I believe it was against Orlando. Last second from like 30 yards out and went in.
So, David, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that you are expecting a tie in this game going to penalties?
I potentially can see it because the way how the Union have, like I said, their last 3 games have come down. 2 of the 3 have come down to penalties. And against Quattero, 11 minutes of stoppage time in the second half. Yeah. Holy crap. Who would have saw that coming?
It could be a very, very intense physical game. I think that is probably on the cards because Jim Curtin's not going to have his team back down to Miami at all. And we've seen Messi and Co get chippy at times, especially against Orlando.
If Messi wants to get chippy, he has to be very careful. We up here in Philly, we have a couple dogs you don't want to piss off, especially Jose Martinez. Yeah. Especially how the Quattero game ended on Friday night with that fight at the end. Now that was crazy. Just witnessing that, I was like, "Oh boy, here we go."
Gian, what are your thoughts for the final? You kind of agree with David that it'll be tight knit?
I think it's going to be a tight game. I think that if Inter wants a chance, because it's going to be a hostile environment playing against a really good team, I think they need to be able to understand what Philadelphia's strengths are so that they can be able to combat them. Like, for example, I know that one of Philadelphia's strengths is to build through the middle, but they've also got really strong wingers. They like to put really nice through balls in the air and do a lot of centers, like that sort of thing. So I think that we need to make sure that we clog those passes on the through the end, which is actually very similar because we're actually very good as well playing through the middle, especially with Kremaski and with Messi coming back to pick up the ball from the middle. So I think both teams are going to have to attack that middle part of the field. But then I think, and let me know if I'm wrong on this one, David, but I feel like you guys or your center backs tend to go up a lot on attack or to really be able to stop the attack. So that opens you guys up to some counters, right? To some counter attacks. Have you guys?
Oh,
do you feel like?
Trust me. Put it this way: Friday night, you saw Quattero, the way we just let them hang around, and then they exposed us when they tied it up late. I was like, oh no, don't tell me we're going down this route again.
Yeah.
Even though we blew out, even though we dominated Quattero the first time around.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be a tactical game
by Daniel Gazda. So there you go. So Gazda is coming back. Kai Wagner, Bedoya, Andre Blake. It's going to be one of the more hostile environments that Messi will ever take part in.
Dallas was not hostile at all.
No, of course not. Of course not. Which I'm not surprised. And put it this way, like I said, for anybody going to this game tomorrow, it's going to be an experience that you'll be saying, oh, crap. I thought I would never, like, especially when the Philadelphia Union came in, like I was mentioning before, when they came in the league in 2010, nobody in their right mind would ever think one of the greatest soccer players of all time would ever play down where Subaru Park is right now in Chester, PA. Nobody would ever even dreamed it. And we're less than 24 hours from that happening.
And that's
unheard of.
That's amazing. This is not going to be like that Charlotte game. I feel like where after the game I was, relaxed and I was able to sleep early. I feel like this is going to be one of those where the game ends and I'm not sleeping till like 2 a.m. Oh, it's like whatever happens. Yeah, that's going to be.
It's going to be. It's going to be a showdown for sure. David,
this is. Let's put it this way. They're calling this one of the bigger. What was way Jim phrased it? This is going to be one of the biggest events to ever hit the city of Philadelphia in the last 10 years.
That's crazy.
Especially at Subaru Park, with the last 2 years hosting the Eastern Conference Championship, which New York City beat us the 1 year, which still haunts us still to this day. But we got revenge with them last year.
Mm-hmm.
Then the U.S. Open Cup Finals, which they struggled in those. The CONCACAF ones, it's like this thing is. I can tell you right now, the magnitude right now in this city is buzzing because right now, as everybody knows, Philadelphia is a hardcore football city for the Eagles. The Phillies are starting to figure out what's going on with them. The drama with James Harden, that's a whole nother animal we're dealing with. Then we got the Philadelphia Flyers, who are in a total, complete rebuild, ownership and everything being flipped upside down. And then everybody's saying, soccer? Really? Does Philadelphia really care about soccer? Well, guess what? In the pecking order right now, some of you may agree, some may not agree with this. Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and Union, then Flyers.
So they've made the jump then. They've made the jump over.
Yes.
Ever since Claude Giroux left, I think it's probably been a little bit tougher. But that I think I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but I think that it gets harder like when you lose someone like that. But anyway, David, thank you so much for giving us this perspective and coming on the show today. For everybody watching, follow him on Twitter. Amazing pro and college sports coverage all throughout the city of Philadelphia. At Dave M Reports. Dave, let everybody else what you got going on and where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Dave M Reports. I cover all the Philly events for Sports Talk Philly. And I also cover Penn State for Nittany Central, since there's a certain buzz around Penn State right now since the AP poll came out today. They're ranked number 7 to start the season. So there's a certain buzz about them. And I've been hearing there's a certain buzz about your Miami Hurricanes too. So who knows?
We might have to have you jump on our Six Screens King show for 5 Reasons Sports if a matchup ever comes into fruition.
Well, speaking of which, Temple plays Miami this year at the Link.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that actually. So there you go. All right.
Mid-September.
I'll put in a word. David, thank you so much for coming on. Make sure you go check him out. And as we wrap up here, we'll finish up our predictions and everything like that. But David, enjoy the game tomorrow if you can make it, man.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
Thank
Have
you,
a good one. Oh man, the excitement from outside perspective is palpable. Like I could easily tell that they feel very strongly about. We didn't get to talk to anybody in Dallas before the Dallas match.
No.
And the excitement levels there, but like with this whole thing with Philly, like it's I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's the same excitement that we had when Messi first played, and now, Gian, are we like comfortable? Like it's so weird to see that perspective because we're not there anymore, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of buzz there. Well, think about it. Like like David said, they've never had Messi in their city. And much less in such an important match. Like I don't even think they've had him there like in a friendly or anything. Like this is a semifinal to go to the final, and they've got a competitive team, which is exciting for them. So they feel, I at least from what David's saying, it seems like they feel like they've got a chance to beat us, right? They've got a chance to beat Messi. And I think that the buzz is we can tell from what David has said. I have seen some on Twitter. I've been able to see some of the local news stations just standing outside Subaru Stadium ahead of the game, talking about the buzz around the city and how everybody's excited and talking about where to watch the game. So you can definitely tell that they're very excited. And just like you said, kind of like when we first had Messi, like that first game, like that buzz of just the anticipation of being able to see him is just nuts. I thought our ticket prices were expensive, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's super cool. I guess that we can share him, right, for a day. That they
Yeah,
can,
I guess so.
experience it.
Yeah, like when MLS returns and he's on the road, like what,
Yeah.
4 or 5 more times, it's gonna be like a Messi American tour. Like
Yeah.
it's
It is a
man,
tour
it's
for
so
sure.
it's so crazy. We're gonna wrap up the show here. I do agree, by the way, that it's going to be a tight game. I'm afraid if Miami are in a tight game down the stretch, because if it does go to penalties, I really trust Andre Blake to put on a show.
Yeah.
Although again, Philadelphia have had struggles with penalties, they've kind of come around to it a little bit. So I don't really know where I would think. However, Miami, it would be very beneficial for Miami to get this done and go up early and try and seal the deal like they did against Charlotte. But I think Philadelphia will come out a little bit more competitive than Charlotte did, and it'll be similar to what we saw in the first couple of minutes against FC Dallas, where really they were just getting clear shots on goal that Drake was luckily there for. They were missing the target. I think we'll see something like that from them, just because of the quality of their side. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a game where, I feel like obviously we have the upper edge on talent simply because we have Messi. But other than that, I think it's very even talent wise. They've got some great players. So I think this is going to come down to a lot of game planning. It's going to be a battle of the coaches, really, like who's going to be able to stop both teams are great at passing. So who's going to be able to make sure that they set that midfield up to be able to close those gaps and be able to stop the defense from connecting to the offense. I think that that's really what it's going to be about. And it's just a prayer circle for our defense, guys. If you can, like that's good for 100%. So I'm not afraid, and I've said this from the beginning. Is since Messi has touched down in Miami, I think we can beat everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say that this is easy. And then lastly, I'll say that I think that although Charlotte was easy, thankfully we had a tough game against Dallas, so that kind of does prepare us to be ready should there be any adversity and a tough crowd and that sort of thing. So I'm confident. I think it'll be definitely a tight game. I don't think we're going to see 3 or 4 goals. I think it's going to be maybe like a 2-1, 3-2.
We're gonna get a normal score line. Are you kidding me, Gian?
Yeah, normal score. Yeah, for real. We're used to these insane goals and these insane scoring lines, like you said. But yeah, it's definitely gonna be a tough, gritty, battled game. And but I definitely trust Messi, and I think we come out with a dub on this one for sure.
All right, and with that said, predictions are a win tomorrow night. Make sure you stay tuned to Messi and Co. and to 5 Reasons Sports for all the coverage to come. We will be doing pregame stuff, postgame stuff, stuff during the game in terms of tweets. Make sure you follow both of Gian and I down below. You can see our @s right there. Also follow Messi and Co. @Messi and Co. Follow 5 Reasons Sports @5 Reasons Sports with the number 5. Check out the podcast on Apple, on Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you use, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, go to the live section of the channel. You can see our live shows there. You can see our recorded podcast on the regular video channel as well. If you're listening on the podcast, make your way over to YouTube, subscribe, put the notifications on so you can be alerted when we go live or when we post a visual podcast, if that's something that you're interested in. We thank everybody for all the coverage that we've had in this time, and we are committed to looking to grow and pump out the content when it comes to Messi, because we know how important the coverage is for fans, not only in North America, but all over the world. With that said, for everybody at 5 Reasons Sports, including Gian and myself and Messi and Co., we will see you guys tomorrow night. All right? Have a good one.